Round 15 needed to be a good week for me, and it was, even though it could have been much better. I ended up scoring a 1950, which put me up about 1,000 ranks, so I can't complain too much. Let's kick it off in the back line with my trade in Wanganeen Malera. He was really good, managing 35 touches and 7 marks, which got him to 125, which is great, especially on debut for me. His last 4 have been really big, and it seems like he's got that halfback locked down with Sinclair pushing up the field, who we'll get to in just a sec. But yeah, the Wang is a really good player, and 7 kick-ins is nice, but he still gets plenty of the ball elsewhere. We had Dane Zorko score 1 point less with 124. He came home very strong from a slow start, with 22 touches and 5 marks in the second half, which gave him 83 points in the final 2 quarters. I just love watching him when he's on. And in the final few seconds, he put on another 9 points, and you could just see it coming. He gets back-to-back chip marks and just turns a bad score into a good one so quickly. Then Harry Sheasel had 116, which is also really good, and he's finally doing really well in his half-forward role, and it seems that he's got it all figured out. 30 disposals, 9 marks, a few tackles, and a goal. Another really good stat line like last week. He's now averaging 122 in his last 3, and I'm very happy with what he's done. It was certainly unexpected, and I was considering trading him at one point. Lockie Ash was reliable for 103. Whitfield went down early, so I thought he might have gone a bit bigger, but that didn't eventuate. He did have 33 touches, which is very impressive, but just not as many marks or tackles as we would have hoped for. 6 tons in a row for him now, though, is very impressive, and hopefully he continues this after the bye. Jack Sinclair was poor, which I didn't see coming. He got named in the mids and did push up the ground a bit, but he wasn't exactly in the centre bounces. He just couldn't get involved in the game, with 19 touches and just 64 points, which didn't even count for this week. And my final defender was Bailey Dale, who was surprisingly poor too against the Tigers, and what sucked was that he was my captain. He wasn't that bad and looked on track for like a 105 unless he really got going. However, he sat on the pine for the last 15 minutes of the game, and I'm not sure why. The Dogs had plenty of interchanges left and had 3 injuries, but he never even got up. And he was my captain's, so the 87 points did hurt even more. My other captain option was the Bont, so I did lose 33 points with that decision, but oh well. And sitting on the bench was Angus Clark, who was actually really good to score 66, and that should make him plenty of coin. Now to the midfield, where Connor Rozee let me down, but the rest was pretty good. Rowie coped the Jordan tag, at least for the first half, and he did struggle. 34 points at halftime wasn't great, so in the end he did okay to get to 79. It's his first score under 100 in the last 7 weeks too, so we'll let him off the hook this time. Andrew Brayshaw was pretty good for 104. He had 29 touches and a few marks and tackles. There was one really quiet quarter in there, so apart from that, he did really well. I don't have too much to say about his game, as he was overshadowed a bit by his teammate Sarong, who we'll get into soon. But Nick Dacos was very good to get to a ton, as he copped the Windhager tag, which at times can be very devastating, as Bont found out last week. Somehow, he managed to still rack up 30 touches and a goal, which is great to see, and I'm still unconvinced to whether he can break any tag or if he really struggles against them, because we've seen a bit of both this year. This was his first in-between score of the year, because his previous lowest ton was 120, and we hadn't seen those average scores until now. Marcus Bontempelli repaid owners a little bit, as he scored 120 in the final game of the round. It would have been nice if I'd had the C on him, but still very pleased with what was delivered. 36 touches and a couple of goals from him. He didn't really have many marks or tackles, which prevented a really big score, but at least it wasn't a 50 like last week. He's still only averaging 87 for me, but a step in the right direction. Then I have absolutely no idea how Adam Chera managed a ton, let alone 109. His first quarter and a half was so slow, and there was a point where he had more tackles than touches. 7 points in the first quarter wasn't great, but a blitz in the second half of the second quarter got him to 38 at halftime. Chera had 19 of his 25 touches in the final half, which got him to 109, aided by 8 tackles and 5 marks. He's now averaging 113 in his last 5, which is awesome. Now, for Caleb Sarong, who I traded in this week and got instant reward. 137 was one of the top scores of the round, as he had 35 touches, 5 marks, 4 tackles, and 2 snags. I've had a bad run of trading in guys for bad scores, so he well and truly ended the streak with a big one. There was a point in the third quarter where he'd only scored like 2 points for the term with 5 minutes to go, and I thought he'd gone quiet. Well, he went on to record like 35 points in the next 4 minutes, and he just didn't stop from there. Josh Dacos turned up with a solid one. 0-1. That's really good. And he had 30 touches and 6 marks, but he was on 64 at halftime, so he did slow down a fair bit, which is slightly annoying, but that's all good, I guess. 4 tons in a row is pretty good, given the 70s he was dishing up a bit earlier. Zach Johnson did let me down with just 35, and I actually didn't expect that because he'd been really good recently, but not this game. He had 3 single-digit quarters compared to the 7 of his previous 8 quarters, which had been over 25. His break-even was minus 30, so he still made some coin. Just maybe not as much as we would have hoped for. The ruck line wasn't as strong, unfortunately. It seems that Zeri's good run was just a flash in the pan because he's not been great for a while now. Another 80 from him with just 12 touches and 28 hitouts. Carlton came in with Pitnet and TDK to try to stop Zeri from having an impact, and it was just about their only game plan they came armed with, but it done work, and Tristan just wasn't great. Rowan Marshall was a bit better with 105 against Cameron, who was a bit of a difficult matchup. He started so slowly with just 11 points in the first quarter, but he went big in the second, with 10 of his 20 touches, 32 hitouts and a goal in there too. Just really, really good for him to bounce back in this way. The forward line wasn't great. I had the VC on Bailey Smith, who I was confident wouldn't let me down, but he did. He hadn't gone under 119 in the previous 8 weeks, but he was kept to just 94 points. He still had 28 disposals, but not many marks or tackles for him to get to a ton. I'd expect him to bounce back very big next week because that was his quietest game in a long time, if not all season, and I don't think he'd be too happy. Nick Martin also dropped a bit of a stinker with an 85, after 6 tons in a row beforehand. Only 21 touches for him this week, but 7 marks made sure it wasn't too bad. Chad Warner was bad though, with just 81 points. I was never keen to pick him at all, and I got lucky when he scored that 112, but he's averaged 75 since then, which I'm not very happy with. His run does open up a little bit now, but we are really going to need him to bounce back, or otherwise he will have to go, I think. I traded in Sam Darcy, and he did very well against Richmond. He came out with a huge first half of 82 points, as he had 15 touches, 6 marks, and 3 goals. He did slow down in the second half, which was mainly due to a 6-point third quarter, but 2 goals with his only 2 touches in the last quarter got him to 114, and he ended up with 5 goals and 2 behinds. My final on-field spot went to Archer May, whose score actually counted in my total this week, and I didn't see that coming at all. He has 14 disposals, but 6 marks, 3 tackles, and 2 goals. Maybe he wasn't such a mistake after all, and he might make a decent amount of coin now, which would be handy. So all of that scored me a 1950, which was a pretty good score for the round in the end. It was a round rank of 2,700, and my rank's moving the right way again. I had a lot of good scores, especially in the back line. I had 12 tons total, and if I'd gotten my captain right, it could have been a big one. My team value went up a fair bit too, which is nice. Looking at my trades, they were really good. At least mostly. I traded in some huge numbers, which I haven't had in a while. 114, 137, 124. They all came into my team this week. And on top of that, I managed to trade out Zach Merritt before he dropped that awful 57 on owners. I got rid of Rankin too, so that's another tick. Unfortunately though, I was very unfortunate with my third trade out, who was Sam Doherty, and he scored 131 once he was gone from my team. I find it frustrating because I was so keen on him before. And the second he dropped an 80, I let him go. Just 7 days prior, I had an option to get anyone in the game and I went with Doherty because I saw something I liked, but I didn't get to reap the rewards of that. That's okay because between him and Merritt, there was risk either way, and it was probably a net positive. The other bummer is that I was looking to bring in Luke Jackson on Thursday night, and I just couldn't make it work. So when he was the week's highest scorer with 144, that did hurt a fair bit. But if I'd gotten him, I would have missed Darcy and the Wang, so I probably didn't lose out on too many points in the end. My +3 would have to go to Caleb Sarong with 137 on debut, which was awesome, and especially on Thursday night because that always gets you in a good mood for the rest of the weekend. The -3, however, belongs to Jack Sinclair because a 60 really isn't good enough at this point in the season. Now, let's go to the overall rankings, and there's been a fair bit of movement as Jacob has slid into 4th, and Hassan has taken that top spot. The guy who was leading last week slid even more as he scored only 1,700 as he had Whitfield captain, and unfortunately that one unlucky incident might have cost him a car. And the highest score of the round went to Robert, who put up 2,161. Now let's move to the Open League. Jacob's in first, but David is closing in on him now as he's moved up into 22nd place overall. There are also now 13 people in the top 1,000 and 43 in the top 5,000. I'm now in 33rd place, and I think I should at least be hoping to end in the top 25. My rank of 3,000 isn't great, and while I've jumped up and down a bit this year, I've hovered around the same mark all year, which has been frustrating. I'll need a big push to finish in the top 1,000, but I do think it's possible. Next week might not be great though, because I might be struggling to even field 18 players. So with that said, let's go over the trades that I'm thinking of ahead of round 16. I have some very difficult decisions to make here because I'll either need to trade out a few good rookies early or let go of a premium who's doing well. I'll definitely be bringing Tom McCarthy in. That is a guarantee, and he is an absolute must-have. I also really want Tyrell Dewar and Callum Mills, but I don't think there's a way I can afford these two. Instead, I think I'm going to be forced to make 3 rookies fix-ups, so McCarthy will come in for Saad El Hawley currently, as I'm reluctant to trade Clark just yet, as he still has more cash to make, although I'll probably still have to trade him next week anyway. Then Tyrell Dewar can come in for Caden Cleary, who hasn't played in a while, and that's a bit of a straight swap. Finally, since I can't really do much with this final trade, I'll be going Hugh Boxall to Liddy at least at this stage. So I think that's all for today, but I'll be back Thursday to have a better look at trades.